we should be live. All right, here we are for Toddler Tips Tuesday. It's been a while. I was away, but we're going to jump right in. All right, so let's be honest. Who here feels like you have to yell, bribe, beg, whatever it takes to get your toddler to come to the table for dinner every night, right? So that is a big problem, and you're not alone. You cook dinner, you call your toddler, and nothing. They just don't come. You feel like they're ignoring you, but really they're just still so deeply invested in whatever it is they're doing, making their Lego masterpiece, that somehow the dinner's ready just kind of becomes something that they can ignore. It becomes, I like to say, one of the most ignorable phrases in the English language. So if this is you, drop a yes in the comments, because today we are fixing this with one simple trick, the mealtime call-in trick. No more power struggles, no more shouting, and no more frustration for you and your toddlers. I'm Jess, and welcome to Toddler Tip Tuesday Live. And today we are talking all about why toddlers ignore us, and especially at mealtimes. And more importantly, how we can get them to the table without a battle so we don't feel like they are constantly ignoring us. So first we're going to go into a little bit about why toddlers ignore us in the first place. So if you feel like your toddler is actively ignoring you when you call them to the table, it's not just stubbornness. It feels like it, but truly it's not. There's actually a reason for the behavior. And here's what's happening in their little minds. So they're deeply, deeply engaged in play, whatever it is that they're playing with. So for them, stopping feels like a huge disruption. It's like the end of the world for them. And transitions are extremely hard. Switching from one activity to another, it takes a huge amount of effort for toddlers to do this. And direct command, so directly telling your toddler what to do, you're often going to be met with resistance. So the more you demand from them, the more they push back at you. And of course, they don't feel a sense of urgency. Toddlers work on their own agenda, their own time, toddler time. It is unlike ours. It is very different. And their internal clock is wired to tell them it's not dinner time when you're telling them it is. So instead of fighting against all of these things, all of their instincts, we're going to learn to work with them. We're going to work with our toddlers' instincts to make mealtime smoother for us and then for them. So a couple steps to do this. So the first step is try using some type of fun 5-minute warning. One thing you can do instead of suddenly demanding like come eat or time for dinner is to do a countdown. They don't truly have a sense of time, but if you keep giving them reminders, they're going to start understanding that it's coming at least, which makes it easier. So for example, you could say, oh, the dinner train leaves in 5 minutes, all aboard. Or I'm calling all the hungry dinosaurs. I need to make sure that the feeding ground's open soon. Something that they kind of buy into that gets their attention. You could also say, oh, dinner's almost here. I need my dinner helpers with me if you're going to give them special jobs or kitchen things to do. Now, why this works is it just mentally prepares them for that transition. Again, they can't tell time, but you're preparing them and letting them know that it's coming very soon. So instead of just yanking them away from whatever activity, they have a little bit of a warning. So it goes a little bit more smoothly. The second thing you can try is some type of sensory signal. So toddlers don't always respond to words alone. So the last one may not quite work for your child. It depends. But a lot of kids will respond to multi-sensory cues, which will get their attention more easily. So ringing a dinner bell, I know it sounds old-fashioned, but it doesn't have to be a bell. It can be an alarm on your phone, but just some type of, think of a dinner bell, situation to get them to come to the table. You could play a short song that you use the same song every single time it's dinner time, so they start to associate the two, and then they know. So it helps with that transition. And you could sing the song. It could be a song on your phone. It could be a song that's attached to an alarm, whatever it might be. You can do a rhyming call. Rhyming calls work really well with younger kids. Like for example, it's time to eat. We have to get ready to take our seat or something like that. Usually tends to get a little bit more buy-in from younger kids. Trying to think of some other call-ins. Dinner, I think there's one. Dinner time, come and dine is another one. It doesn't rhyme exactly, but that's like another one I've used with my daughter that works. But the key here is to be consistent, and then that way they learn to associate the two things and use that same cue every time. And eventually they're going to start realizing, and you're going to have a lot less battles on your hand. That power struggle is going to start to go away, and they're going to come to the table a lot more easily after they've associated the two things. The third thing you can do is to assign a special helper task. Toddlers love, love, love to feel important, and they love, love, love to feel like you are giving them the world's most special job. It may not be, but to them it is. So they could be something simple like a spoon distributor. So give them fair warning and let them know you need the spoon distributor to come help put all the spoons out on the table in a few minutes. And that will definitely get their buy-in more. It could be something as simple as the table setter who puts out all the napkins, whatever you feel comfortable having them do. They could be your special food test taster, and have them come to the table and let them know, oh, it's almost time for our special food tester to come to the table and let us know what they think of everything. So any of those type of jobs that you can think of will really help and go far with getting your toddler to come to the table. And again, this all works because they start to feel like they want to come join the table instead of like they're being forced to by you. And the last thing you can do is, if all else fails, is turn it into some sort of game. Toddlers buy into games. It's usually fairly easy to get them to want to do it. But what you can do is something like, all right, we're going to hop like a bunny to the table tonight. And then when it's time, like, oh, I need my bunny. Where's my bunny rabbits? We're going to hop to the table and hop. Fun transition games like that. Or if they like dinosaurs, oh, I need the dinosaur to come stomp, stomp, stomp. We're going to stomp, stomp, stomp to the table. You can even race. Let's see who's going to race to the table, or who can count the highest on the way to the table. There's so many different quick little games that you can do to try to get your toddler to the table. And those I tend to use as a last resort, but they do work. They can just be a little bit more tiring for you and a little more loud, but definitely worth a try if all else fails. And again, that works just because toddlers love games. They love playfulness, those kind of things. So it kind of lessens that transitional struggle for them. Now, why does all of this work in the first place? So if we think about it through just child development lenses, it's not just about making it fun, although it kind of is, but there actually is real science behind why it works. So instead of just abruptly cutting them off, we are working with their bodies, with their brains, with how they're actually developing to make those transitions a lot more smooth. They run smoother for them, for us, for everyone. We're setting up clear expectations for dinner time, or whatever meal you're using it for. It just tends to be dinner time usually the worst, because that's when our patience is the lowest. We feel like they're giving us the biggest run for our money at that time. But we're setting those clear expectations that they need to come to the table. We're just attaching something to it, whether it's an alarm, a game, whatever you choose. It makes your toddler also feel like they have a little bit of control, which toddlers love. They're kind of playing with their newfound independence. So giving them that little bit of control will go pretty far. And of course, it helps to strengthen that parent-child connection, that bond. They no longer see it as you're just nagging at them and taking away playtime and making them come to the table to eat. It kind of creates more of a bond situation and a little bit more buy-in. So it really truly is better all around and a lot less stressful and more positive way. So what if you try all this and it still doesn't work? Because in a perfect world, it will work most of the time. But again, no toddler is built exactly the same as the next, not even twins. So you never know what you're going to get from one day to the next. But I'm going to tell you, if they refuse, don't give up. They will start to get there, especially if you, whatever call-in trick you're using, use it consistently. They truly will start to, over time, associate it, and it will start to work. It just might not work the very first day, but they will adjust to it. You could also, some toddlers just need more than even a 5-minute warning. They might need 10. Depends on their body and their brain and how they're developing. So if the 5-minute heads up isn't working, try 10. You can also try switching up whatever sensory cue that you're using. If it isn't working, you could try a chant instead of a song, or they chant back to you. That way you know that they're actually listening. So whatever you say, have them repeat back. Those kind of things. You could do with helper jobs, you could have them pick what job they want for the week to give that little bit of extra buy-in. But again, whatever you choose, just make sure you stay calm, because the second you dig your heels in and start demanding, they're going to dig right back into you. And that's kind of leading me into the next, what you want to make sure you don't do when you're trying to get your toddler to the table is, because it will make the transitions a lot harder, is really digging your heels in and demanding, as tempting as it can be when you're tired and frustrated at dinner time. You don't want to skip the warnings. Definitely try to give them some type of warning or heads up. Like I said, they can't tell time, but their bodies will then at least know it's coming. Don't use threats or bribes. They might work in the short term, but long term, no good. I can assure you, because it will just create more problems down the road. Don't give up too soon. Like I said, nothing's perfect and nothing will always work the very first night. So stick with it, promise. And try your best not to turn it into a power struggle, because like I said, they will just dig in just as deep as you do. So, quick action plan for you. So, try it this week if you can. Pick a fun call-in method. We call them call-in methods because you're calling them into a different activity. But pick some type of fun call-in method. Try it, whether you're doing a bell, a song, a theme, a game, stomp around the dinosaur, whatever it might be. Give them a helper task. Choose something to try. Stick with it. Stay consistent. I would say at least for a whole week, and see what difference it makes. Usually it works pretty well. And if you still are having trouble, please feel free to email me, DM me, whatever it might be. But shoot me a message. I will help you figure it out. And I do have, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat right now. But I do have a list pulled up, so forgive me if I look over at it on my computer real quick. But I did get some questions back through DMs today from the post, because you guys who have been here a while know I do always, with the blog posts, I do a post on social media and send out the email. So I did have a couple questions come back. So I will go over them and answer them first. And then if there's any other questions in the chat, I'll answer them next. And I know we're short on time. We try to keep this to 15-20 minutes. So I will go as quick as I can. But, all right. So your turn. If you have a question, drop it in the comments. I'm going to jump in. So one question I got back was, what if my toddler ignores the warning completely? So I talked a little bit about that, but just make sure you adjust the timing. So if 5 minutes isn't enough, try 7, try 10. You could also do an actual physical signal. You could go over and like tap your child on the shoulder and be like, oh, just so you know, 10 more minutes. So you are getting down on their level in their space, not demanding them to leave just yet, but kind of giving them that warning in a physical way to kind of make sure you're getting their attention. That's one thing you could try. Another question I got was, what if my child just flat out refuses to eat once they come to the table? I have lots of resources on this. But if your goal is to get them to the table to start, then start there. Focus on getting them to the table. Once you conquer that battle, then you're going to jump into your second one. Trying to tackle both at once is more than likely going to backfire. Toddlers they'll get confused and you're going to drive yourself in circles trying to tackle two problems at once. So focus on whichever one's more important first. If you want to get them to the table at least, focus on that for 2-3 weeks. Once they're consistently coming to the table, then we would tackle them refusing to eat. And I have lots of resources. Toddler Tip Tuesday, you can check out my website, raisingmyteenagetoddler.com. There's lots of resources that you can use for actually getting them to eat different food. I have lots of posts on Instagram about that as well. But try to focus on one problem at a time. Someone else asked, this one was an email response, how do I make this work for multiple children? So that's a really good question. That is where I will be soon with a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old. I'm going to have 2 of them I'm trying to wrangle to the table. But what I would do is assign each child a different role or different helper, job, whatever it might be, to get them to the table. Still use your other call-ins, such as if you're going to use like some type of cue, or if you're going to use a song or game, still use it and just try to make sure it's appropriate for both of them, depending on the age spread. But I would assign them different jobs. So if one's like a napkin helper, they're younger. If you have an older child who can handle it, they can set out like the cups and pour the water or the milk or whatever it might be. So kind of give the jobs depending on their age and what they can do. And I actually have mealtime job helper cards that I can drop in the comments later when I post this. that I'll post the link for it where it actually has it all broken down by age if you need some ideas. But next question was, what if my toddler keeps getting up from the table? So that's a good one. So it's related, but again, focus on whichever one's more important. So first, focus on getting them to come to the table. Once you've successfully had that for a few weeks, then getting them to sit at the table could be your focus. And keep in mind, I do have some resources on this too, but one thing you want to make sure you understand is that toddlers just in general have a harder time sitting still. So if they truly, so now you're getting them to the table and you can't get them to sit still and sit at the table for more than a couple minutes, it could just be their internal motor isn't there yet. They haven't reached that internal maturity yet. So you're going to want to try to do things like give them breaks. You're going to want to maybe set a timer and build up your chunk of time. So maybe they can only sit for 5 minutes and then they need to get up and race them around the table real quick. I know not ideal for dinner. I get it. But if you do this, you can eventually start to make that time longer, and then the breaks will be less and less. And then they'll eventually be able to sit for your 20, 30-minute meal. But you're going to have to work up to it. But again, focus on one problem at a time. Another question I had was, this is a really good one. So how do we make mealtime transitions smoother when we eat at different times or different places? This is a good one. Because in a perfect world, you're eating in your own space all the time. That doesn't always happen. So if your routine varies and you're not home, you're still want to kind of keep that transition method the same. So whether you used a song or an alarm or something like that, have it on your phone. Because usually you have, unless you're me, I forget my phone all the time. But usually you have your phone on you. So if you have something like that you can use, that's great. Because then wherever you are, doesn't matter what space you are in, you can use it. Now, I realize if your child's like in a daycare situation or with someone else watching your child while you're out of the home or at work or whatever it might be, you're kind of at the mercy of them, and I get that. So then you can only be consistent for the time you have them, but it still should work because they will learn to associate it with you and when they're eating with you. So still keep at it. I wasn't sure which way you were going. That person was going with that. And then the last question I got, and I just want to make sure I don't see any in the comments. No. But the last question I got was, this is another good one. So can this work for other transitions like bedtime? Yes, it absolutely can. You just have to adapt it a little bit. But the same method, the same reason why it works, the same child development principles all apply to transition, apply to all transitions. Sorry, I said that wrong. Late, sorry. But it applies to all transitions. So you can adjust whatever your calling cue is and change it up to whatever the situation is, whether it's a bedtime situation or bath time or brushing your teeth or getting ready for school in the morning. You can just go through the same cues I talked about, but kind of adapt them a little bit to whatever routine it is or whatever you're trying to get them to transition to doing, and it will work. You could use the same song for getting ready for school every day. You could use the same alarm. You can make different alarms. We have different alarms for different things, like even to feed the dog. So my daughter, my 3-year-old calls the one on my phone. It's so sad. I forget to feed the dog. I have an alarm for it. But my daughter calls it the Fred alarm, the dog. We have a Frenchie named Fred. So we have different sounds and alarms for things. But you could use the same one. But either way, my point was you can use alarms for all different things. You can use songs for all different transitions. So my last thought to you is just know that kids, especially toddlers, struggle with transitions. It is 100% normal. It is not you. It is not your fault. Just make sure you're using predictable routines, timers, warnings, cues, different things, and you can help them come to the table, come to meal times, and like the last question, with all transitions, whether it's bedtime, leaving the house, whatever it might be, leaving the park, you can use these suggestions for all different types of transitions. So that's it for this week's Toddler Tip Tuesday. We are out of time because it is just about 8:20 here on the East Coast. But If mealtime battles are draining to you, hopefully this trick is a little bit helpful and you can use the call-in trick, like I said, for different things. If you do use it for your mealtime struggles, getting them to the table, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it, love to hear success stories. And if it doesn't need more help, please reach out. And that's it for this week's Toddler Tip Tuesday. I will see you next week on Tuesday. Have a great week. Bye.